could pass, or the other thing that they could do is limit the number of establishments within the city. Those are the only two things that you're allowed to initiate by petition.
So if we do nothing, they can get their 254 signatures and opt in? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Or they can,
no.
if we do nothing, they can opt us out?
No.
Because they can prohibit?
They can't, if you do nothing, then you're in, right?
But can the people vote to prohibit it? Is
If
what
we
I'm-
opt out, signatures get them what?
If you opt out, signatures get them nothing. They can't initiate anything.
Right, because if we had 900 local voters that voted for it, and they need 250 signatures to force a special election, which costs the city 15,000, or
Right.
I don't know what a special
If you did-
election would cost us, but it's significant money.
Make sure I said that right. If you did nothing, you're in,
Right,
but then someone could circulate a petition, 5%, put it on the ballot, and they could opt you out.
Yeah, but they can't opt us back in.
They can't opt you back in. If you're in, the citizens
Force you out.
could limit the number of establishments. Because you do nothing, there's no limit on the number of establishments until you do something.
I brought extra copies of the state ordinance if you'd like them.
No, I haven't. Yep.
I,
Fair.
same thing.
If,
And I disagree with your statement.
I don't,
You have
Just
it
a-
backwards.
question, so if you, because we hear about the amount of tax dollar that it's going to create. Does the tax dollar go into the general fund and then get distributed? Or my question is, if you opt out, are you not eligible for any of those tax dollars? Does anybody know any of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So the way this is set up is once this comes into place, there's a 10% excise tax on the sale of marijuana. That 10% now mind you, there's also still the 6% sales tax. To my understanding, that's a statewide pool, and there's a formula based on how each community would receive those funds, just like there is now. While there might be an increase in sales tax, there might be some increase to the city when we receive our sales tax component through revenue sharing. That's probably maybe 1% or 2%. We really don't know what that is.
Okay.
Now, the 10% is the first $2 million, am I correct?
The first $40 million.
40 million.
First $40 million,
20 to
Goes, the $40 million goes to clinical treatment, or clinical trials for treatment of veterans or to prevent veteran suicides. Then after that, of the 10%, 15% go to municipalities, cities, counties, or cities, townships, and villages, based on the number of facilities in each city, township, and village that is in. 15% goes to counties, again, based on the number. 35% will go to the school aid fund, and 35% will go to the transportation fund. So in answer to Perry's question, you're talking about a percentage of the 15%. And it would be a relatively small percentage, assuming if there are cities like Grand Rapids that are going to have
50 or 60, yeah.
You think of some of the other larger cities in the state. And the other thing that was mentioned here is that you would be entitled to charge a $5,000 annual license fee, which you would be able to keep. Not $25,000, the limit is $5,000. Of course, against that, you have to weigh what additional cost is the community picking up because of that.
and you are required to allow all 5 or 6 classes of business in your
At
community.
least one of
Yes,
each.
at least one of each. You can't discriminate in a certain type, correct?
Because with medical, we could, right? We could say,
Yeah, we could opt out.
yeah, we could opt out of one or two of
You
them,
could just
right?
have provisions.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I would argue also that I think that there's a lot of delusions about how much money it's actually going to generate, because the people who voted strictly to legalize it, strictly so that they could use it, are not going to buy from somebody different than they already buy from. And odds are pretty good that person's not going to pay the 10% excise tax and the 6% sales tax and report it accurately to the IRS. So, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't think any of us know.
Well, I think I would encourage the community to reach out to council members. We've got, a week, 2 weeks. We're all pretty accessible, and we're looking for input from the community on what you're looking for. We're going to have to do some homework on our own.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at right here. Because they certify the 26th, is that?
The 26th is their meeting date.
Okay.
So December 6th would be the date.
Yeah, but we're down, you leave the 28th?
I leave, yeah, fly, I could make a meeting on the 28th. I have to go to Detroit late that night to fly out early. And then I'll be back on the 5th, so I could meet on the 6th.
Then if the 6th would be that's the day it's legal.
School aid, yeah, that's effective date.
And it has to be a super majority, so all four?
Yeah, and we only have
Because
4 left.
you're not
Right.
putting a council member on until after that day.
Yeah, so
correct?
probably, yeah, the 17th, so the second meeting of December.
Just so everyone's clear, the reason for that, and that is in order to give the ordinance immediate effect, which it needs to have immediate effect, it requires 4 votes. So otherwise, it doesn't take effect until 10 days after it's published in the newspaper, and you couldn't meet that deadline.
Could do a special meeting on the 28th, just do it at 6 instead of 7, so that if it runs.
I'd have to move that up. I have a commitment that Wednesday, so I'd have to do it like at 4 PM. Are you back from work by 4?
No, but for this I will be.
4 PM
On the 28th?
on the 28th. Okay. That'll give us time. There's enough. I can send you guys too if you want. There is a ton of threads, municipal league threads on who's opting out, and mayors, and I'm sure managers have one.
Why don't you send
I'm
them
sure
to me?
city attorneys have one.
Why don't you send them to me?
Those listserv things are going, you're getting 5, 6, 7 emails a day of questions and concerns, and there's some pretty good sources of information in those threads.
Can
So-
we have also more input from the community at that meeting then? Is that what-
Sure.
I mean, before we vote, we would certainly encourage input.
Open public comment, sure.
Yeah, I would definitely open up public comment again for that meeting.
All right, so, I will make a motion that we schedule a special meeting for Wednesday, the 28th at 4 PM.
Or
Sue?
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer,
Yes.
and Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
All right.
So, one more question for Dick. Just so when you have to have this if they vote, in order to vote yes, to have it here, all 4 have to vote yes, correct?
No.
Yes.
Yes to opt out.
Oh, to
They have to
opt out.
vote yes to opt out.
Yes to opt out. So if you go 3-1 to opt out, you're not opting out,
No,
correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay,
If you kidnap one council person and make them disappear.
Don't laugh, that happened in my former community.
Generally, you would only kidnap people who could possibly provide you a return. Nobody's gonna pay to get any of us back.
My wife, when we go,
Hey, that happened in my former community, the council member got kidnapped.
To a better place or to a worse?
No,
place?
so they couldn't vote on an issue, they got
No.
kidnapped.
Well, we take some turns
But you
around here.
can't kidnap us because we all need to be here to vote on it. So if one's missing, that means like we just opt in.
Yeah,
Okay, so no kidnapping.
no kidnapping. Would the ransom money then come out of the general fund, or would we be responsible to come up with that on our own?
Oh, that's coming out of the street traffic.
Yes, the traffic light money. All right. New business, item A, ordinance 18.6, chapter 15 amendment, Michael.
At the November 12, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, the commission recommends to the City Council approval of proposed amendments to Chapter 15, the Plan Unit Development Ordinance. Due to the extensive nature of the amendments, both a clean and marked up version is attached. I've included, also there's a memo from Williams and Works. Andy Moore's here tonight to explain to you the modifications to the Plan Unit Development Agreement or ordinance. Recommended motion is that the Lowell City Council adopt ordinance 1806 for Plan Unit developments. Andy?
Andy?
Thank you. Andy Moore, Williams and Works, Lowell City Planner. As Mike said last week, the Planning Commission, who has worked on this ordinance for a couple, 3 months now, voted to send this rewrite of the PUD district chapter to City Council for approval. Planning Commission over the last several months, probably a year or so now, as you know, has been working kind of chapter by chapter through the zoning ordinance, just looking for just to modernize it, looking for inconsistencies, troublesome language, stuff that we have a hard time enforcing on the staff side, things like that. And so we took a look at the Plan Unit Development District, and what we found, just to kind of provide you with an overview here, is what we found in looking at it is that it's really intended for kind of a very suburban model of the development, so it really only allows pretty much for residential subdivision type development. It doesn't make any provision for mixed use zoning, redevelopment of existing properties and things like that. So what we proposed in this rewrite is to both update and kind of modernize the process so that it is consistent with what you should be doing and what we would be doing anyway, so that there were some provisions in here that were no longer consistent with accepted case law as far as how you handle these sorts of applications from a procedural perspective. And then we also added some language in the ordinance that also allows for redevelopment of smaller parcels, existing parcels, preservation of historic buildings, and things like that, in addition to some of the more traditional, single-family type PUDs that have common areas, open spaces, and things like that. So that's kind of an overview. I don't know, do you want me to kind of walk through section by section or take questions? I guess it's up to you as far as how you
Yeah,
want
the changes are all highlighted and struck through, right?
to. Yes, all the changes should show up on that market.
And I know
version.
that
There are a lot of them.
Yeah, I know that planning put a ton of work. Anybody have any questions for Andy? Greg?
No.
Jim?
I went through it and they look pretty good. I think
Looks a lot more clean and
Thank Bruce and
streamlined.
your team for putting this together.
All right, if there's no other questions for Andy, I will look for a motion for ordinance 18-6.
I make a motion that we accept 18-6.
I'll support.
Any other questions for Andy? Sue?
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
and Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Item B, downtown master plan, Michael.
In 2015, work began to approve the downtown master plan. With the changes in leadership that occurred in 2015 and 2016, the Downtown Development Authority and City Council never formally approved this plan. Since the beginning of 2018, DDA and City Administration have been working with Williams and Works to finalize the plan. Since that time, we've incorporated some recommendations from when Dan Burton's visit to downtown in the spring occurred, and we've updated some items that have been addressed since the plan was first written in 2015. Andy Moore's here tonight to present to you the plan, and if the council is supportive of this plan, we'll come back at a later date, and the city attorney and I will come back and revise the tax increment financing plan from the DDA to include the potential improvements to the plan. I'm recommending the Lowell City Council approve the downtown master plan as we presented. I turn it over to Andy.
Thank you again. So this plan, as Mike stated, this process started several years ago. It was a really interesting and fun planning process. There was several different kind of design workshops that occurred throughout the planning process. And so as you flip through the plan, there's kind of 5 separate sub-areas within the overall downtown that have fairly specific recommendations for streetscape improvements, sidewalk improvements, signage, infill development, all these kinds of things. So this plan is really intended to make improvements to the public realm of downtown Lowell to make it, again, just kind of build on the improvements and the progress that the city's been making over the last several years. Most of the changes that we made recently are towards the end, so we added some more specific action strategies and kind of a to-do list for the city to look at potential improvements and some concepts to have in mind in terms of improving pedestrian safety, traffic flow, visibility, walkability, wayfinding signs, things like that. We incorporated several recommendations from Dan Burton when he was here that also included at the end of the plan. We also included for your consideration a resolution to adopt this, which is, I believe, it also included in your packets. And so if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Can you highlight some things to the plan and the
Sure.
PowerPoint?
So if you want to, on the presentation, so the 5 sub areas I was talking about are shown on page 6 of the plan. So right here we have A, B, C, D, and E. So A is what we call downtown west, primarily on the west side of the river. The downtown core, as we call it, is right around the river, kind of the main downtown, and also where we are now. River south would be kind of south Monroe area. The Monroe Street area would be probably including our part of where we are now, and then downtown east would be heading onto the east side of Main Street. So as we kind of go through here, just the plan is kind of walked section by section. So Sue, if you skip ahead to page 10 and 11, it shows kind of a downtown core analysis of existing conditions. And then there's a placemaking plan on page 13 that sort of draws out some of those proposed improvements for the downtown. So this drawing right here on the plan, you can see that it's a little hard to see on the screen, but there are some streetscape improvements, sidewalk improvements, crosswalks, bulb outs, which are the area where at an intersection the sidewalk is kind of extended out further into the right of way to allow for a shorter distance for someone to cross the street. And then if we continue on to the next page on the downtown core placemaking plan, there's some conceptual illustrations here of what bump outs would look like right here at the corner of City Hall. This actually also shows a one-way northbound travel direction on this section of Monroe. That's not guaranteed it's going to happen, but it's proposed as a concept at this point. Continuing on.
Would that be no truck traffic on that street, or would you still allow it? Because that's a complaint we get on those streets.
I honestly don't know. I mean, that's something that before we got into heavy duty design of that, we'd have to figure out what's going to work best.
It looks like it's cars only with the scale.
Probably, but
And I think those
yeah.
bump outs would help too. They'd have a little tougher time making that turn to go
Yeah.
up and around.
Yeah, but this is all very conceptual at this point, so any physical improvements would be studied pretty thoroughly first. And one of the things that we proposed at the end of the plan is before we get into making significant investments in sidewalks and streetscapes and making changes like that, that we do some kind of trial runs. So you can accomplish a lot of the same things and see how it works with temporary planters and cones and bollards and things like that. So you can get some good real world feedback and see how it works without spending as much money. And if it doesn't work, you take it out and you try something else. So that's something that we've also talked about in the plan.
Do you lose parking at all, or is that areas that are?
No.
Actually, you gain some parking
Yeah.
on both sides of Monroe Street.
Yeah, this is all proposed to, part of this plan also included a parking study where we looked at the existing parking available downtown now, which your zoning allows, and that kind of compares where parking is needed. This was done before the South Monroe lot went in, so that, some of that's been met, but there's still going to be some parking demand, so that's something that we'll just continue to pay attention to in the future. There have been several projects, as you guys know, that have gone on in the last few years, downtown restaurants, breweries, and so forth, that all consume parking. And so we're very mindful of the fact that, those all take up on-street parking spaces, and we'll need to be careful moving forward that we're not, having a parking shortage is a good problem to have if you have a problem. But we also need to make sure that that's balanced between not discouraging people from coming downtown.
Andy, I like the bump outs, but that's M21 state highway. Is that something we have to address with the state first to get their blessing before anything could happen?
Yep.
We've had preliminary conversations with MDOT, and they're not against the idea. It's really more of a matter of what they would agree to. So what we have here may or may not be something they support, but they're not outright saying, no, you can't have it.
Right. Now, would MDOT be a contributing partner in paying for these?
Oh, no, it would be the DDA.
Had to ask.
And
The VA asked the same thing.
And this kind of concept might work elsewhere too. I mean, something like that with bulb outs and that traffic pattern might work in other locations as well. This is shown largely as an illustration. There are some other drawings in the plan that are similar and show similar kinds of concepts. So I know one of the ones that we've been talking about is on page 17 and 18, which is the River South placemaking plan. This shows improved parking and obviously some significant improvements to the riverfront there on the south side of Main Street. Again, this is shown as a concept. It'd be a very cool project. Obviously, actual physical designs may change when we get into, the infrastructure limitations of the space, real world costs, and things like that. But again, looking conceptually at some of the projects that the city can undertake to really connect the north side of the river to the south side and bring people across the street. We think this would be a beneficial project for the city. So we definitely encourage, you guys have all seen it, and the public, of course, to, read the plan. It has a lot of really, great recommendations in it. Like I said, it goes pretty straightforward as far as just section by section through those 5 study areas, looks at existing conditions, makes some recommendations. It's obviously based in kind of real world planning and real world challenges that we would have to address. And so some of them are going to be pretty simple. Sue, if you're on, go to page 24. So this is the top image on top left versus the bottom left is kind of a before after type conceptual image of what kind of a gateway coming into Lowell from the east might look like. So there's a crosswalk again, there's some bulb outs there by the church, there's some new signage, improved sidewalk landscaping, etc. So these are all things that the city, this is a longer term plan, this isn't all something that's going to be done in the next 6 months or year. So as the city and as the DDA looks to move forward and continue to make public improvements downtown to attract new development, redevelopment of properties. These are all things that as that process goes on, that should be keeping in mind and kind of looking to implement as real world conditions dictate and warrant.
Are we looking for citizens' comments back on some of this as well? Or not at this point?
Yeah, not at this point. I mean, so the process to actually draft this involved a lot of citizen participation. It was a few years ago now, but there were several meetings. There was a steering committee with, I don't remember how many members on it, quite a few. There was, there was long design charrettes that involved a lot of public input. It was pretty successful. So I think, we're pretty comfortable with what's there. We feel like what's there is rooted already in public input and public support.
I didn't know if we wanted to put it on the webpage so people could go on and take a look at it if it's not already there.
I'm gonna put it up,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
And the DDA had public comment, or past 2 meetings when Andy presented this as well. All right, any other questions for Andy? All right, I will look for then a motion to approve the downtown master plan as presented.
I'll make a motion that we approve the downtown master plan as presented.
I'll support.
Any other questions? Sue?
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much.
Item C, sidewalk grant bid, Michael. Rich?
In 2016, the city was awarded a LCTV grant in the amount of $27,600 for a sidewalk replacement program. In January of 18, City Council agreed to permit a change in approach to the grant and allow sidewalk improvements on city properties and to improve ADA accessibility issues. With the change in the approach, the grant funds will actually be more beneficial to the entire community. In October, the city issued a request for proposal for sidewalk installation and replacement projects on city properties, and one bid was received. That bid was Groundhog Excavating for the amount of $30,548.05. While only one bid was received, the quoted price is in line with industry standards. I recommend City Council accept the bid in the amount of $30,540.05 from Groundhog Excavating and Landscaping. And I should add, by the way, that some of the work that was listed in the bid process was in the DDA, so there's a little bit of a difference between the bid amount and the grant award, and so some of that should just bring on the DDA.
When would this work start?
Oh, good question, thank you. I did call them, obviously we're running out of time this year to build it, so they were thinking like April maybe, and when they do get going on it, it'll be about a 2-week project to finish, so very rapid.
And I have worked with that company in the past, and they do good work, so I'd like to see more than one bid, but I know in today's environment, it's just tough to get any bids, so this is a reputable local company, so I would support that.
All right, I will then look for a motion to accept the bid amount from Groundhog.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid of $30,548.05 from Groundhog Excavating and Landscaping.
I'll support.
All right, any other questions for Rich? Sue?
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
and Mayor DeVore.
Yes. All right, item 7, board commission reports. Jeff is not here anymore, great.
All right, some good news on the trail that we're working on. We have a conditional commitment from MDOT that we received on October 31st of $3.1 million for the connector to go from Foreman Street to South Jackson. And then on November 8th, we received our scores from the MDNR grant of a potential 390 possible points. We received 2 scores of 360 and 340 points. That's great news that once those 2 pieces of the puzzle are in place, that will allow us to approach some of our major donors. This is a regional trail, and once they see that this gives us about 2/3 of our funding, which is still a conditional commitment because they're waiting to see that we raise the rest of the money. But now we'll be going to the Myers and the Fry Foundation and these other groups to try to wrap this up and make it happen, which will be a great thing for Lowell. So good news there. The Parks and Recs Board meets tomorrow night at 6 o'clock downstairs. And we will be discussing the Unity Building property proposal. So any community members that would like to stop and put their 2 cents in on that would be encouraged to attend 6 o'clock tomorrow night downstairs.
Cool. Mark?
Planning Commission, we buttoned up in on the plan unit development. We have a new Airbnb here in downtown. That's 2 apartments. We got that squared away for them. The light and power board, fencing's got to go up around, as a lot of you have seen the new gas regulated station that's in downtown, down there on Broadway is to help get more gas and pressure into the city so we can run the gas turbines down at the Chatham Street facility. It's got to get fenced in yet, and we just got the bids for the fence, right, Perry?
Mhm.
So that'll be happening. The generators are coming out of that old building. The old steel part of that building's coming down, and there was talk of what to do with that little concrete section there. So, moving forward.
Cool. Mr. Salzweedl.
On December 5th, the LCTV board will be meeting to discuss the 2019 funds availability. Once that is determined, I'll make an announcement, and we'll, I don't know exactly what the cutoff date will be, but we'll get that out to the community. I will be joining the Arbor Board, so Mike will let them know. So I'll represent that from that part of it. That's it.
Very good. All right, Wolf Memorial Committee, Perry had mentioned already, $2,000 for the fencing at the cemetery. We granted $8,500 to police department for 4 digital speed signs, 1 in each direction on Bose and 1 in each direction on Foreman. And then $9,075 tech upgrades for Lowell Arts, and they're going to do a bunch of stuff over at the other place too, for the theater there. And then Fire Authority was today. They're having some serious discussions about full-time staffing down there. That was it. The new truck got pushed back to January. That is it. And I am taking Jeff's spot on the Historic District Commission going forward. That is all I have. Makes it your turn. City Manager's report.
Over the last few weeks, I've spent a lot of time trying to rewrite some policies. We discussed back in the summertime about revising the purchase policy, and I finally have been able to have time to start addressing that. I've put a draft policy together that I've written, and I'm going to be meeting with the department directors next week to look at it, and I'll probably have the city attorney take a glance at it real quick, and then be bringing it back to council probably, I would anticipate probably in January with the holidays and all that. Been working on that. Also, we are trying to update the employee personnel manual. We have a personnel manual that needs some major upgrades to it, and Lowell Light and Power is helping us with that, because in many aspects we can mirror their policies. So they're helping us with that. Also, been trying to also work on, obviously now with the changes with Proposal 1 coming in place, the impacts that it'll have as an employer as to how we manage those issues. So I've spent a lot of time trying to work on that as well. Today I met with myself, Perry Beecham and Rich, we met with members of the Kent County Youth Fair Board and their executive director, and I think we're close to having a tentative agreement. We made some very good progress today. In a very short period of time, and we made some very good progress when we met last month as well. So hopefully I'll have more information in the very near future. I've also, when we discussed this earlier this fall about the possibility of a water and sewer authority, we've started conducting our due diligence. I've met with the townships. I met with both Tim Wittenbach and Jerry Hale just to discuss items. And we met last week, and then we had a generalized meeting about 3 weeks ago with city staff and Lowell Township staff and their engineers, and so we're working at some of the conceptual ideas first before we start actually trying to identify what we anticipate want to do. Also had the opportunity last week to go to the city of Ionia to learn about their when they created their authority. They actually own their own city utility, actually sold it for a bond. Actually didn't sell ownership, but sold it for bond, for basically for lien holder purposes for the bond. And when the bond expired, they created the authority, because even though the city owned the asset, they were trying to, they all had a certain amount of capacity to begin with, and try to do it so they could address it, their utilities in a more regional approach rather than city and town, city and township, or maybe it might in some aspect could have been an adversarial relationship. They tried to put that authority in place, and it seems to be working very well for them. So got a lot of good input, got a lot of good ideas from when I met with them. Still trying to figure all this out, and hopefully we can bring you a more detailed update here hopefully next month or two. Probably I'll confirm this tomorrow, but before the next council meeting on December 3rd, we'd like to have a joint meeting with the park board and the city council. I know I sent emails out to everyone. It looks like it would work, but I just want to confirm that tomorrow, to discuss the portion of park property that's currently on the RFP. We've met the charter requirements. We've done two notices of RFP in the ledger, as we're required by city charter. And then the next step would be, is once we receive those bids, then we can have a discussion with the council and the park board on how to do that. Just a reminder, Dr. Lou Bender will be here on January 30th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. I believe that's a Wednesday. I can double check. But he will be here to do a team building session with us.
Are we going to do that off-site?
Yeah, we'll do it off-site. I haven't confirmed the location yet. But once I do, I will let you know. And that's all I have. And hopefully everyone has a good Thanksgiving.
All right. Questions, comments, discussion on the monthly reports that I skipped 2 items. No. All right. Item 10 is appointments. That's a pretty long list. The list in your packets, there was only 2, Brian from Historic and Dan from the Construction Board of Appeals, that have not gotten back to me at all. Everybody else on your appointment list would like to continue serving, with the exception of Michael Arkin, who will be stepping down from DDA at the expiration of his term. He said 19 years is long enough, so he's not going to go for number 20. So we'll need to announce that opening as well. And that should be it, as soon as I hear back from the other 2. So if there's no concerns or issues, we'll take a consensus on those appointments. And then changes Jim and I made as well, the Arbor Board and Historic District Commission. Good? Good?
Good.
Good. Council comments, Mr. Canfield.
Just would like to thank Jeff Phillips for his service on the council. Wish him best of luck in his promotion and things at work. It's a big commitment being on the council, and he did a great job here for us. Went through some rough times a little bit when you're a new guy on the council, as I know of. There's a learning curve there, but Jeff did a great job, and just wanted to say thanks. Encourage applicants. We do have a couple applicants already for that position, but if someone else is thinking about it, it'd be great to have a couple more to consider. And encourage the community to let council members know on the recreational marijuana opting out, opting in. We're, again, looking for feedback on that. That's it.
Mr. Chambers.
I hope all of you get to come downtown for Christmas through Lowell. I'd like to figure out a way we can be like that all the time. It's good to see the city full and vibrant and happy people. And M21, I've never seen it move so slow, and people were so courteous to stop and let people walk across. So it was a good time. I also would like to thank Jeff for the time he served on the board. I was the one that was the only one to fill out when Mr. Teelander stepped down. I don't know at that time if I was, as Perry put it, stepping into the fire or the frying pan, but either way I did it. And Jeff had some good advice for me, and I appreciated everything he's done for me, so that's it.
Good. Mr. Souls, we
There is a city that is like Lowell was this past week, and that's Galena, Illinois. So if you ever been there, you need to find out how they do it in that part of it, because they have 10,000 people coming on the weekend, and it's just a really great town to be in. I also want to thank Jeff for his service on that part of it, and looking forward to see who the next person is. So that's good.
Good. Jeff was with me from the beginning, and we got through some tough times together. I always appreciated his positivity, but he said he'd be around if you guys want to bother him. You just got to change your hours of bothering. It's like city manager phone calls. You can schedule them for times that are convenient for you. I hope everyone has a fantastic Thanksgiving, and I hope a lot of people come out on the 28th. A lot of people. Because we need to hear what you people want us to do. With that, Mr. Salzweedl.
I'll make a motion to
December
adjourn.
1st parade.
December 1st.
Are we
Christmas
walking?
parade. We are walking.
Okay, we're walking with Santa, with the talk, with,
Santa's private security.
okay.
Yep.
all right.
And then, Sue, we won't be doing coffee with council,
Okay.
because they need the chamber, the building that day.
Also, in continuing what I think Greg has made quite the fantastic tradition, the 17th of December will be the ugly sweater, leg exposure, council meeting party, okay? Now, Mr. Salzweedl.
That'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:32.
Support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.